Hello again, and here we are with part 3 of our Render Talk series, which focuses on the capabilities of NX Render and how these can be applied to the marine industry. In case you've missed the series so far, I'll have part 1 and 2 on the screen now, alongside the blog series, which covers the same topics if you prefer reading. Once again, Gavin McCambridge will be joining us to provide industry knowledge with this part looking at lighting and customizing your environment. This section is a big one, so I'll be splitting it into 2 parts for you. Okay. So Gavin, looking at the overall model and scene, to someone who isn't an expert, this one looks quite tricky to set up. Would I be right in thinking that?
Yeah, this one is a lot different because normally these kind of scenes or a lot of normal renders, consumer products, something like that, is in a studio environment. Even vehicles can be done in a studio type. Where for something like a yacht, we'd want that on the ocean. We'd want that looking like that. So if in this case, we actually looked at how we wanted to display it, and a lot of that was researching and looking at nice pictures of yachts in the ocean. So yeah, part of it was actually researching, finding out how we want it to look, and then coming up with the techniques that we needed to actually create that as an environment for rendering.
Okay, so you mentioned setting up a custom environment. How difficult was that to do?
NX allows you to basically plug in your own HDR textures, which we're using for lighting. We can also use them for the environment as well. So when we say environment, we're saying about what you see behind the model and around the model. This scene itself is a little bit different, and something that I know we're going to talk about later is we actually created the sea and put the sea into it for this. But then the other side of it was actually having an environment that looked like water, and in this case we actually created one and created a HDR of our own with the sea underneath and the sky above, so that we could get the lighting correct for this scene. Okay,
you've made something look really impressive sound fairly easy. So let's talk about the yacht itself. I assume this stage is similar to one that we've covered in materials in terms of ensuring the lighting reflects the high-end luxury. So how do you do that exactly?
Depending on which we're doing, if we're doing the interior or the exterior. So if we take the exterior, for instance, it's how's the best way to display a product? What looks great, what looks good. Obviously a nice hot shiny sunny day, sorry, not shiny day, looks the best. And it's kind of like that's the first point. Okay, that's the type of lighting we want. And then we looked at how the lighting is going to show the boat. What I'm looking for at that point is I'm looking for highlights as well as sort of shadowing on the boat to give it a real effect. So it actually looks 3D. It's not just a flat image. And if you don't have enough of the different types of areas, so brighter areas and darker areas, often your image will look flat. So the key to part of this is choosing your camera angle as well as the lighting and adjusting the lighting so it's hitting the boat a certain way to give you that real sense of the object and how it is in reality.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to me, I think it looks perfect, but that leads me on to the next question of, obviously we're going to talk about more of the environment and the ocean in the next part, but I want to ask here just about the interior and exterior renders and how you set up the lighting for these different types of shots.
So part of the engagement, the reason we have these images that we've done is we wanted to show the client what was actually possible with NX Render. And one of the main features that we really wanted to highlight was the fact that these shots are actually, all the shots contained for this whole project are done with the same lighting setup for the interior and the exterior. So we don't actually change anything now. In Viz, you can often have completely different setups of lighting for an exterior shot to an interior. And what we're looking at interior is, you're often having to brighten up lights and stuff to make it look, to bounce the light around and make it look a nice, inviting, bright space. What we've done here is, so we've lit the exterior with a HDR, and then what we've done in the interior is we've actually used the modeled lights from the yacht itself and applied an emissive material there. So it's a material that gives off light. And then we've used that and we've controlled the power of those, the emissiveness of that, to actually give us a lit effect inside of the building. Sorry, inside of the yacht, not building. But that's how we're controlling that, and that's how we're lighting it. And it gives, because we're using the actual fittings of the light, we're actually getting a more realistic kind of feel to how it would be. So we're getting washers on walls where we would expect them to be. Sorry, when I'm saying washers, I mean how the light kind of washes over the wall, and those kind of effects from it.
That's brilliant. And the skill and technique gone into the two scenes is so apparent and makes the whole thing just seem so real. So let's say someone like me is listening to this and wants to try it. How difficult would this be?
So anyone starting out in rendering, I would actually first start with just open up NX Render and change the environments, the system environments that come shipped with NX. They'll show you different techniques and how things are lit. What the next thing you could do at that point is, rather than going the sort of route that we took, which was to completely craft and customize a marine environment, would actually be to start. There are HDRs available on certain websites that you can go and download them from. I would go there, grab one of those and put it into NX. The actual sort of menu system that NX has, the UI for it is quite simple. You just go into the system scene setup and then specify the HDR you want to use. You've then got options to rotate the HDR to whichever sort of degree you want, and then going into a little bit more where you can set the height of the ground levels and stuff like that. This is all easily done within NX, and it's all quite straightforward. That would be the first part. Just put your own HDR in, try it, and then towards the interior scene. So this requires a little bit more, because what you're looking at on this is how it's going to be lit. So generally, it's been lit from the outside. We've got glass, we've got windows, so we're getting light in there. But then the other thing to it is I want to add custom lights into there. And generally, like for something like this, which is a yacht, it's very luxurious. And again, that's the feel, as we've discussed before in the material section, is I'm looking at the lighting and how the lighting is going to work. So again, it's literally going to the palette of materials, find the emissive ones. I think they're under lights, and then apply them, and then go into that material and start editing it. And as we talked about before in the material one, there's these two different sets of options for materials. There's a basic editing and an advanced editing. So it's only what you feel comfortable with, and do you have access to what you need in there, and try it that way.
Okay, well, that's great, Gavin. I think hopefully it gives you guys at home and myself, if you want to get started, to hear that it's so accessible and easy, and hopefully with what we're providing with the blogs and these render talks, they're good guidance for you guys to get started. So like I've said, we'll be discussing customizing the environment, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. Thanks as always, Gavin, and we look forward to having you guys on the next one.
Thank you very much for having me.